session. All know, first of all, we are super thankful to have this crew up here to help give us some real up-to-date information. They're charismatic, they're excited, they cannot wait to be able to share these things. But you know what, honestly, we're fighting a similar fight, right? We're fighting a common enemy, just going about it from a different perspective. Obviously, we're doing what we can to continue to build up families, encourage kids in the way that they ought to go, grant hope that comes from the Lord. And they're out there fighting the bad guys, and this is one of the ways that they can do it, is to prevent your children and other children from even being able to get in touch with them, and also for you guys to be aware of the resources that are available. So I'm super thankful that they're here. I'm sure they'll give themselves a quick introduction about their heart and what they're called to do.
I'm Jennifer Wright. This is Sergeant Aaron Boyce, and we work for the Sheriff's Office here in Dawson County. Just to put this out there up front, we are not professional speakers. We've really not ever done this like this before. Our audiences are usually like juries or suspects. So we deal sometimes with some bad things, and because of that, we make light of a lot of things that maybe, might come off as inappropriate. We don't mean to do that. We don't want to offend anybody. But I've been at the Sheriff's Office for 22 years. I spent a big chunk of that working drug cases. And I did not know how much I would want to do what I'm doing now, really, until I started doing it. Aaron we've worked together for several years, and I think we have together really learned a lot of things that we didn't know were going on in our community, that we didn't know were problems that we've had. And every day I feel like we find something new that kind of blows our mind. So some of the stuff we talk about might actually mimic a little bit of what Pastor Jeff talked about. We don't want to bore you. We don't want to harp on a lot of stuff. We really want to leave some time for y'all to tell us if you want to know about something that we don't have in this. So I'll let Aaron get us started.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. So I also wanted to say, before we get too far into this, we'd really prefer for this to be kind of interactive. There's going to be some times where we ask you guys some questions. And so if everybody would do their best to try to interact with us. So today we're going to be talking about ways that we can protect our children online. There are obviously lots of different ways that we and children can access different things on the internet, be it computers at home, school computers. I know in Dawson County, a lot of the schools, especially in the older grades, they issue out iPads for kids to do their homework, schoolwork on. Friends' computers, laptops, personal tablets, cell phones, e-readers, such as Kindles. This is going to be one of those interactive moments. All right, we're going to start it out pretty early. What do your children do online? Anybody want to raise a hand and share some things that they know that their kids do online? Yes. Roblox, yes. So different games, Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft. Anybody else? Shop. Homework. What about social media? Anybody's kids on social media? Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, YouTube is considered a social media, and YouTube is a big one nowadays. It seems like a lot of times kids had rather sit and watch a YouTube video of another kid playing a game or of another kid opening some new toy. So yeah, YouTube is a very big one, and YouTube is an important one to keep an eye on because of all of the things that are on the YouTube.
I think another thing is research. Kids just doing their research for school, and it takes them off into paths that they should be on.
Yeah. Yes, yep, social media influencers.
I kind of just want to jump in a second. I meant to kind of put this in the intro. One of the fundamental things we want to talk about is we are in no way, we do not think anyone has bad kids. And so I had done something similar at the school at one point and made the mistake of thinking that I was like on the same page with these parents. And I was telling them things like, you got to get involved with what your kids are doing. You got to go through their phones. You got to, be on their social media. And I see these parents sitting there with their kids, telling their kids, like, I would never do that to you. And I was standing up there thinking, like, I don't know what's going on here. So one of the things is the problem is not your children, okay? Like, kids are curious. Kids are going to get into things. It's why you childproof your house when they're little, and as they get bigger, your childproofing just kind of changes and grows with them. And an example that I had heard a while back was, when they're little, you put them in a car seat and you buckle them in. And then as they get bigger, they move to booster seats, and sometimes they get in and they put themselves in. And you're hoping that when they're 16, 17 and driving, they're not only buckling themselves, but they're telling their friends to buckle up. And so it's kind of like that. So when we're talking about you getting involved, we're not saying that because we think that your kids are the problem. The problem are the other people on the internet. The problem's not even the internet. The problem are the bad people on the internet out to do bad things. And so you mentioned Roblox, and I kind of jump in when I hear these things. I recently worked a case where I didn't know this, but Roblox has what's called condo rooms. And I worked a case where an 8-year-old little girl was having sex with probably an adult man in a condo room with her little minotaur or whatever they're called. So, when I hear y'all talk about these things, if I think of something, I just want to share it with you, because if we don't know what's going on, I feel like, parents may not know what's going on. So it's kind of part of what we want to do is share examples of things, because there are, to me, and I think Aaron would agree, there are no safe places on the internet. Like, there's not a safe place you would drop your kid off in Atlanta Friday night and say, I trust you, I'll be back in the morning. You may trust them, but it's not your kids that are the problem. So just kind of want to get that out there as we go along.
All right, so safety and security issues. The good news is that the vast majority of our kids are not getting into trouble online, but there are obvious risks to consider, such as the inappropriate content, online privacy, sexting, online enticement, and cyberbullying. Specifically with teenagers, we see quite a bit of the sexting and the cyberbullying. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along further through the PowerPoint. It is important that you communicate with your kids about the internet, and not only the internet, obviously, but just in general. But when we're talking about the internet, we need to do it at a very age-appropriate level. So with your younger kids, we need to talk to them about looking at inappropriate content, pop-ups and passwords, and not trusting everyone that you meet online. Now back to the things like Roblox and gaming. When kids start to get into playing these games at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, you may not realize that they're in this sort of virtual world, especially with Roblox and Minecraft, and they may encounter or communicate with other people, other real people in this game that are also online, where they can go into these condo rooms, right? And especially 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, if they see, I have come across John in this game, right? And I've got a friend named John at school. These kids, a lot of times, don't understand that John in Minecraft or in Roblox is not my buddy John from school. And so we got to be able to communicate on that age-appropriate level and help them understand that you can't just trust everybody that you meet online. And unfortunately, that is a very common way that a lot of our cases get initiated as far as internet crimes against children, is that some kind of relationship is developed online. With your preteens and your teens, when you talk about cyberbullying and sexting, posting personal and inappropriate information, and meeting individuals offline. Who here knows, it's pretty obvious, I think, but does everybody in here know what sexting is? Yes, okay. So when a person shares a nude photograph of themselves or somebody else via text message or over social media, this is becoming what I think a lot of us may consider an epidemic or pandemic in the world nowadays, and a lot of kids and teenagers are pressured into doing this, and it's unfortunately almost become normal and strange if you don't do it. And so we see a lot of this happen with the teenagers in our community, especially in the junior high and the high school. And we'll talk a little bit more later about, sort of the outcomes of that and the blackmail that we've seen in the past, retaliation, and just sheer embarrassment for some of the victims that have been involved in that.
And sexting is also, it is like an epidemic, but it's also becoming normalized. And I think that a lot of parents that I've dealt with, I think he's dealt with, are also not very upset that their children are sharing these pictures, because the parents are allowing their minds to become more accepting of these changes in our world. And they say, well, and it's kind of like how we used to say, like, boys will be boys and all. And I think that it's important that we set these standards, really early on, because does anybody know the average age that kids are exposed to pornography because of the internet? 7 or 8 years old. So if you're exposed to those kind of things on the internet, and often, you're not going to tell anyone, probably not going to go to your parents and say, hey, I watched some porn today. You got to deal with that in your own mind. Like, 7 and 8 year olds have to decide how they're going to process that and what they're going to do with it. Did you have a question?
Sexting that just stays there forever, right? So like a future employer could see.
Yeah, it can. It can, yes.
So kids need to be made aware of that too. Is that right, Joe? You can't get rid of those people.
Well, yes. So depending on how files are uploaded to the internet, they may not ever disappear. They may be on the internet forever. The other thing to consider is that things are shared constantly on the internet. And so just because, let's say, for example, we have a teenage girl who has sent a nude photograph of herself to her teenage boyfriend, if he were to share that with one person, and then it's really just kind of a domino effect, right, where it gets shared all over the world. We have worked child sexual exploitation cases where image and video files are being shared here in the United States, and they originated on the other side of the world. So yes, it goes much further than just won't disappear from the internet, because these things are unfortunately shared constantly.
High school, and there are students that I've had, that friends of mine have had, and you would think that they were just from real nice families, dressed completely, normal, and then they will show, and we will see pictures of them. This is more than one that we've seen. We think, oh, this girl is so sweet. She answers questions. She talks like you would never dream. And then we would see the pictures that they have online of themselves. Like, we just happen to accidentally see them. And it's like almost nothing on. just really disappointed me when I saw some of those, and just I couldn't believe, and it's prevalent.
That's
Yeah,
true.
unfortunately, it is. It is very common, and you know, that's one reason why I feel like we're, you know, so willing to come out and talk to people about this and try to educate parents on this type of thing. Is it's important for parents to understand that, you know, we need to talk to our kids about it from, you know, an early age about what's appropriate and what's inappropriate to share with anybody, but also online.
And you know, a lot of kids are learning from a lot of kids. Like, hey, I found this. You got one kid who's not monitored on the internet, and he's a wealth of knowledge to all these other kids. And I have learned on a personal level to never be like, no one in my home would do that. I'm a foster parent, and I've had to make some decisions about teenagers coming into my home and having phones, and they show up and they already have some values and they already have some ideas of how their life needs to be. And I've been from one end of the spectrum to the other. You know, I've had a young man who, when we plugged up his PlayStation and saw what he was Googling, I was certain that the police were coming to kick my door down for fear that had already gotten on the, my Wi-Fi. And so I had to sit down and have a talk with him about all the reasons. And so his response was, well, if I can't look at girls my own age, then can I look at the hub? And I said, I hope I don't know what you mean. And he frequently watched Pornhub and had been sexually active. And so when I went to say goodnight to him, this turned into an hour-long, super, in-depth conversation about safety and your body and how important your body is. And on the other end of that, I've had a young lady in my house, this child, good as gold. I love this little girl, and we didn't monitor her phone for a little bit because we thought she was going to be there for a handful of days, and it turned into months. And when I took her phone, I was shocked. I mean, just floored, because the kid wouldn't even say a bad word. And so a lot of times it's a matter really, and I felt dumb because I'm here telling y'all how you need to monitor the internet, and I went, I wasn't. And so, I mean, sometimes the internet offers this anonymity to people, and adults too, and you can go on there and you can do things and think, and it be true, no one will ever find out about this. And that's where a lot of predators come in, but it's also where a lot of people just make bad decisions. And it's just hard because people are curious. I mean, kids, adults, we all done something stupid. I'm so happy I didn't have this technology when I was 15 or 16 years old. And it's such a heavy weight for these kids to carry. And so that's why it's important that we get super involved, super nosy. And people who say, oh, I'd never be a helicopter parent, I don't even know that there's another way to be. I mean, not when it comes to this.
Yes. Yeah, and we're going to talk in just a second, actually, about how to respond to these things when you come across your child accessing or being exposed to inappropriate content. But just to kind of follow up on what you're saying, a lot of us that have kids with cell phones, for example, are real quick to rely on like parental controls. There's a lot of different apps that you can install on devices, some of which will send an alert to your phone when they use certain keywords or phrases. So when certain things are typed into a text message or an internet search, you can block certain things and set, screen time limits and things of that nature. But the internet is constantly evolving. All these applications that kids use are constantly evolving. And my 10-year-old loves to watch the YouTube. And I have blocked the YouTube from him, and he has found ways to get on YouTube. So, yeah, I mean, I know from personal experience that does happen. If everybody in this room does everything correctly with their kids, goes through all of their stuff and has all of the parental controls, some of these kids are still going to find a way around it. And it's not because they're bad kids or they're looking to do something wrong. It's just this is the world that they live in, and they're evolving with the internet, and they're curious. Yes.
Because they seem to get around them all the time. And thank you for sharing that from yourself, because I'm like, what is wrong with my child? Like some master hacker, block TikTok. And I'm like, he's watching the video, and I'm like, what are you watching that on? He goes, Spotify. What? I thought they were just going to listen to music on Spotify. Right. Like, oh my gosh, like they find it everywhere. And then he got it on the Switch, and you could find.
Yep.
I thought that was just little games, like okay, games are safe. No, there's no internet. So thank you for sharing that. It just seems
Well, and that
validates that I'm not going crazy with my screen time, and we have Disney Circle, and I just walk off.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we're going to talk about later in the slide is doing research on the different devices that our kids either have or that they have access to or that we plan to buy them for Christmas, right? Because some things like the Nintendo Switch, you may not realize that this has access to the internet. You can do Google search. You can get on YouTube. You can access pornography from it. So, yes, that is very important. Yes.
I don't want to give her my bank details because I don't have bank details. Can she send it to you? And that's just happened this morning, that a random's reached out, and my lovely niece here wrote back and said, do you even know her? Like, is it someone from your school? No, but she said she'll pay me. It's not a scam. And that's a girl. She lives in Atlanta. She's my niece as well, cousin. But I've immediately just made her screenshot it and sent it to my brother as her father, because I went, like, your daughter. And she deletes those messages to hide them from my brother. So, and even my niece here got contacted 5 years ago when she was 13 by someone on Instagram and chat, just started talking to her. And these are just things to be aware of. And she was really innocent at the time, and the person just started chatting to her and was like, oh, what school do you go to? She was like, oh, this school. Thankfully, my sister saw it as her mom and ripped her out of school immediately and changed schools. She's like, you just told a random where you go to school. We can't have you go there anymore.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we'll talk about. So you guys are all bringing up great points. All right, if we can move to the next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about how to respond to these things. Okay, so we don't want to frighten our kids, right? So when we come across this stuff, we need to remain calm and just have, again, very age-appropriate conversations with them. listen to them, tell them it's not their fault, answer any questions they have, and help them report it. So depending on the content that they've been exposed to, if we're talking about photographs or video files of other children that are explicit in nature, then you're certainly going to want to report that to your local sheriff's office or police department. And you can also report it to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at, I believe it's cybertipline.org.
And you know, if you start these conversations early, then it's not going to be so awkward for them to come to you and say, hey, I came across this thing on the internet. I don't really know what to do with this. And because you know how like we tell kids, or some people tell kids, you know, okay, you're driving and you're out there in the big world, and I know we've talked, don't drink. Like, we don't condone it, don't drink. But then you think in your mind, but if you do, you can call me to come get you because I don't want something horrible to happen. So it's kind of like that. Like, we don't want you going on these sites, and I want to protect you from these things, and I'm going to do all the things I can. But I'm not so naive that I think that these children are going to, okay, I don't know that there's a whole bunch of kids that are saying like, oh, that's on my phone. What is that? Well, I was told not to look at it. So you got to have some reality to what you're doing. And even though you're raising great people, they have a lot of room to make a lot of mistakes because there's so much out there. So you got to have like that contingency plan. If you do come across this, talk to me about it. Ask me about it. I'm not going to lose my mind. I'm not going to have a breakdown. It's okay. So, because it's going to happen. If they're on the internet, at some point, something's going to happen. Something's going to go wrong.
Next slide. All right, so what they should do. And this is something really important that you should talk to them about before it happens, because inevitably it's going to happen at some point. So they should turn off the screen. They should use the back button. Tell a trusted adult, whoever that may be. Could be you as the parent, could be grandparents, aunt, uncle, teacher, principal, football coach, somebody that they trust to help them. Report it to the individual website or app. Most of your social media applications and websites, they have the option to report things like this directly to them. And then once they have that information, they will disable the account, usually, and report it to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, at which point a cyber tip will be generated, and that case will be assigned to the appropriate law enforcement agency to follow up on. All right, so these are things that we need to make sure our kids understand not to post on the internet, like the school that you go to, or the address where you live. It's also important, a lot of social media, Facebook, Instagram, they have the ability for people to check in, right? So you can say, I'm at Starbucks today, or I'm at Target. And oftentimes that will specify, I'm at Starbucks in Dawsonville, Georgia, or I'm at Target in Cumming, Georgia. And especially if you're operating a public social media account, anybody can see that. And that anybody, you just let them know where you are, where you frequent, the area that you live in.
So like kind of we were talking about these things with the kids as they get older will help them understand these things not to post. And another thing is to think about what other kids are posting that your children are reading. We have a lot of cases that involve, and I don't really know when this started, but kids are mean. I mean, they're mean, and they say things that they don't really, I don't think through. But we have a lot of children that we deal with that become suicidal because they're encouraged to commit suicide online. And, you know, you talk about these things are happening late at night. I learned for myself in my own home that nothing good happened on a cell phone once they go to bed, you know? So, you know, we had to kind of have a rule that at a certain time the phone is done. There's no reason you need to be talking to anybody at 2 a.m. because, like, the cyberbullying kind of tying into this is, you know, when we were in school and somebody was mean, you're like, I'm glad I'm home. But now it follows you. It follows you all, and you got kids who are up all night long on their devices. And, you know, that can, I mean, even we as adults, you know, you're going to go on vacation, so you're going to post, oh, we're going to the beach next week. Yes, 72 people likes it that I'm going to the beach. So these kids are feeding off of that, just like we do when we post things. We want all these people to agree with what we're doing, and we look at that as some kind of support. Half of them people we don't even know. They didn't even mean to click like. They were trying to scroll and hit the wrong button. But you get some kind of boost in your own confidence somehow. And these kids are looking for that from every direction. And so, yes, and so nothing good ever happened on any of the kids' cell phones in my house after they went to bed. I was never like, I'm glad you had your phone at 3 a.m. and that post got put up. Everybody needed to know that when they woke up this morning. So, and even in that, I have taken devices from children, and it's a little bit different because you probably know what devices your kids have, but I have been sitting in my living room at 10 o'clock looking at that cell phone of the teenager laying next to me, seeing them post pictures on their Instagram, and I'm like, what is happening down the hallway? So, you know, you're so not alone. Like, we're all learning this. We didn't have this. It's new. It's not like teaching kids not to run with knives in their hand. This is not something we just grew up knowing about. So, you know, these conversations early on are really good, and knowing what they're doing and monitoring it.
So, like, you know, sometimes you can put where are you at on your phone, you know what I mean? Like, I have.
Share your location.
Yes, I want to know where he's at and when he's coming home, you know, where he's located. So really, that kind of tells where you're at too then, right? If somebody really wanted to know, they could get into that to find out, oh, he's over at Chick-fil-A right now.
If he's sharing it with everybody, he can, there's ways to share just with you. But then, like Snapchat's the worst, I think. I mean, they go on there, and another thing I had to deal with in my home. I don't want all of these people to know where we're at. I don't even know these people that you know. So I don't like that. We don't do really location sharing except for just the family sharing plan. So there's ways to do that and ways not to do that.
I'll give you a good example of why not to post. People are always watching. Me and my wife went out of the country with one of my first cousins 2 times. And both times his wife posted the location. When we got back into the country, their house was robbed both times.
It's important to really, if you go on vacation and you want to share with everybody that you've gone on vacation and you want to share all the pictures, don't do that until you get back home. Yes.
How concerned would you be if we are posting like a picture of our kids? Like, is it something you just, you know, you always hear these horror stories on Facebook, like their kids' identity, I don't know, identity got stolen. And I'm like, the pendulum kind of swings so hard, I actually get going and delete all pictures of my kids on Facebook. But Instagram you do one at a time, so it's taking longer. But should we not have pictures of our kids online, even if we have like private accounts? Like, is there like apps out there that can somehow like take your kids' clothes off and make them share, like, you know what I mean? Like, is my kid's face going to be superimposed on some naked body that she's going to have to live with for? Like,
Well, it's possible. Just know that anything that you put on the internet can be accessed and used by anybody else. Well, has anybody ever heard of deep fakes? Okay, so what that is where a picture, so a picture of you or your child, their face, can be uploaded to a program, right, that then turns that into a video that is basically created by whoever is generating this deep fake video. But that's something that you kind of have to take into consideration, maybe do a little bit of your own research on, and, make that decision for yourself. Yes.
Without even knowing it, and like if you're putting it on Facebook and you have your Facebook setting to friends of friends, then your friends' friends can see that. And so you don't know who now has access to this collection of, locations that you and your kids go to, that you're posting pictures that are geotagged or things like that. So just stuff you need to know about before you post.
Yeah.
You guys are dealing with things when they get to the crime level many times. When you talk with families, children, after you become involved, have you found a theme of things where my parents should have known? Or the parent said, I saw this behavior and it rang bells and I didn't catch it, didn't do anything about it until it was too late. Are there common behaviors that occur when somebody's getting down a rabbit hole and bad stuff?
Yeah, sometimes. Some of the things that we've seen is, so kids, they kind of know when they're doing something wrong. They get that feeling like we do. And so they, when you see that they're hiding their device, they've changed their passcode to their device, they're using their device more in their room, not wanting to offer it up to you if you want to see it, starting this whole, you don't have a right to look at all of that's a red flag. And one of the things that I've seen predators do is they really prey on kids who, and nowadays, you have a lot of kids who are like, nobody cares about me. And these people really care a lot about those kids, and they're really interested, and they really boost their egos, and they are so into them and so supportive that they're willing to drive from Dawson County, Georgia to New York to pick them up at their school. Like, we've seen these messages, we have been out in the middle of the night at the park when these kids have been picked up by adults who they boost their confidence and they make them think, I'm in trouble with my parents because I made this bad grade. Oh, who cares what teachers think? You're so smart. And yeah, well, they start bonding to that person, So, yeah, there are some things, but every day we see something new, it feels like.
Like, talk to them every day, talk to them on the phone, but they're really someone, like, they just think, oh, this is my friend. And then, like, it'll be, okay, when they finally get to this point, then they'll say, okay, I'll pick you up, and then yeah.
That happens here. That happens here a lot. We have a lot of young people picked up by strangers, and these men will say, well, I didn't know she was 13. She told me she was older, and it can at times be difficult for us. I know it sounds crazy to make cases on this sometimes because there's a lot of things you've got to be able to prove. But, it's not uncommon. I don't think that we have a couple of cases probably a month where maybe this has happened.
We've worked quite a few of those cases, unfortunately. One case specifically comes to mind that I worked where an adult male individual groomed this child for a number of years. He had known her basically since she was born, was a family friend, and had done all of these behaviors that we just talked about. Bought her things, had been, there for her through all the things that she had went through in her life, talked to her about her, struggles in school and with her friends and with her parents, and, showed her the love that nobody else was showing her. Fortunately, we were able to intercept this communication between the two of them back and forth, and picked up that conversation as if I was this 12-year-old girl. And, he met with us thinking that he was coming to meet this 12-year-old girl to have sex with. And that happened here in Dawson County, and it happens far more than we know of, I'm sure, unfortunately.
And in talking about that, don't try to conduct investigations on these things. We actually, to prosecute these cases, you have to have a certain amount of training in how to talk to these people. So if you find your child or a child talking on it, go ahead and reach out to law enforcement, because, we want to be able to catch these people, but don't try to investigate that on your own. We've had it, a couple times in families where they've, and I get it, tried to, I'll go meet this guy. And I get it, but.
But it's super dangerous.
Yes.
To do that, very dangerous, because these people understand what they're doing. They understand that they're coming to meet a child and potentially facing a large amount of time in prison. So people in that position act very irrationally.
And there are women, adult women that do this also to these.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
just men.
Because they know they'll trust them.
Yeah.
And I know we've been talking a lot about older kids, but I see it in the elementary school and the elementary school counselor.
We have, yes, unfortunately worked cases here where elementary school-aged kids are, subject to a lot of these things, yeah.
We do the child safety classes in school. We talk about all of these things, but we still.
But a lot of times, really, the cases that I've worked with elementary school aged children, the parents are uneducated in these things, and so that's why it's really important that we do things like this.
So you said that we, let's just say men, but I know some women too, like when men come and applying to meet with like a 12-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever, like they have in the back of their mind that, I hope I don't get caught.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they don't want to get caught. They don't want to go to prison.
They are waging a war when they're doing it.
Well,
That's a basic question.
when
They go, oh, I'm going to sail away with this 12-year-old, or are they like coming carefully and thinking, I hope that they're there,
well, like Jennifer talked about, when we pick up a case like that, there's certain guidelines that we have to follow, right? In order for us to be able to successfully prosecute it, it has to be clear in the communication what they are coming there for and how old the child is.
Like on that case where you intercepted for that man, how did you get to intercept it? What happened for,
It was reported to us.
like, the parents got wind of it and the child told, or the?
Yeah, the guardian went through the messages, found them, turned it over to us.
Let me ask you, because I know I had a friend in that situation. Her daughter had been communicating. She was, as a mother and a father, they were hesitant to go to the police because they didn't know, how will this affect my child and what will happen to my child? What process happens once a parent does call you? How do you involve the child? Talk to what happens there so the parents feel reassured, hey, we do need to come to you?
Well, we have children interviewed by a child advocacy center most of the time. So we have specialized interviewers that talk to children. So they get a lot of information from them. How long has this been going on? How did you meet them? Have you ever met them in person to get information? We don't involve the child at all in the investigation, other than taking their device and learning what's happened. We work a lot of cases with kids, and we never meet the kids. And we rely on our interviewers, and they don't have to have this police involvement. They're not brought up to the sheriff's office and put in an interrogation or any kind of thing. But their safety is paramount. We also take into great consideration whether or not the child has ever given this bad guy their address. Like, does this guy actually know who you are? So, but then we would take the investigation over, and there's different ways we do things. Sometimes we chat. Oftentimes we do a lot of search warrant writing, and so that we get to an identification of that person. And, they may or may not realize exactly how we got to them initially.
So I'd like to just take a quick second. We've got, just from a time perspective, you guys have some more content you really would love to cover.
Well, I think
These questions are important. We have a time for more questions and answers. So if there are some things you guys really want to
we're on about slide 10 of, I think, 56. So
But we've covered
we've
pretty much
covered
all
most
it.
of it, and I know that we're nearing the end of our time, so I think we can wrap up here, and then we can come back up for the Q&A, and we'd be happy to answer everybody's questions.
This presentation is, we didn't put it together. It's from a website called NetSmart, and that website has tons of information for parents about, and the handouts that are outside, they also came from that. You know, it'll tell you apps that you can use to help you. It'll tell you how to start conversations. Lots of the stuff we've taught. It's just a great resource. How to report things if you need to. It's a really great resource. We use it obviously a lot, but it's really geared towards parents and all ages of kids. There's videos, all kinds of information.
One thing we did want to do real quick before we break is our unit at the Sheriff's Office, the Crime Against Persons unit, we're also responsible for sex offender registry and management. And so our investigator, Lisa Brady, is here with us. And so she's going to come up and just share a little bit of information about the sex offender registry and where you can find all that information published.
Good afternoon. I'm Investigator Brady with the Dawson County Sheriff's Office. As he mentioned, I manage the sex offender registry. If you need to know any information, you can access that from the Dawson County Sheriff's Office website. They'll have a link on there to go on there. Once they're done with them, they come to me and we manage them. They're on there for a lifetime. So we keep up with where they live, if they change their cell phone number, if they're driving a different vehicle, pretty much anything that they do. They must report once a year when their birthday comes around. But anything, we go to their house once a month and I check to make sure they're still living there, nothing's changed. So we try to keep up with them just the best we can. And we do rely on, you guys sending information as well. Sometimes we'll get some tips, hey, we seen them over here at the pool, or, and it just depends on the restrictions, where they can be. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to call me. My name's on the website there, and I'll answer any of your questions.
So it's not necessarily people that end up in jail, it's anybody that you've investigated?
If they've been convicted of a sex crime, then yes, then they're on the registry for a lifetime, so they must register.
You can see where they live. No, they're everywhere too, because they're everywhere.
Yeah, we have approximately 76 in the county, with 56 of them residing here. The other 20-some just work here, may live in Forsyth or, Hall County.
And if we wanted to find out Hall or Forsyth, do they have the same kind of thing for
Yes.
their sheriff's department?
Yes, each sheriff's office maintains their own registry, so you can go onto their website, probably through the sheriff's office, and see what they have. So.
Thank you guys very much.
No.